Hi, and welcome to the Mid-Level Exceptional Sport Business Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Easy. I am the Director of Sales Development for the Portland Trailblazers, and I have the opportunity today, this afternoon, to meet with Allen Jabero. He is the Director of Ticket Sales for the Detroit Tigers. Allen, thank you so much. We were talking a little bit about how y'all are just coming out of the brief work stoppage. So thank you, as busy as it is there, for taking some time out to connect with me today.
No, I appreciate it, Joe. It's good to be here. Obviously, a wild off season, but we're full go. Opening day is about 20 days away, and I was excited to get the opportunity to talk here and chat. So I'm excited for this.
Awesome. Well, let's start off. Just take folks through who we've known each other for a while, but not everybody listening to this may be as familiar with you as I am. So walk us through your backstory, your career journey, and your path to where you are today.
Yeah, Joe, it's crazy to think as we're talking today. It comes up on a decade of me being in the industry, which is awesome. I've been doing this for a while. Started right out of college with a junior hockey team in Michigan, doing inside sales. And so, a lot of folks, I was in the similar boat of not really knowing what to do outside of school. I know I wanted to work in sports, didn't know what that was that I was really going to be good at and what I was going to fall in love with. It took a chance on sales, and Joe, I got to tell you, obviously, I haven't looked back since. I fell in love with it. So did inside sales there. Grew into a group sales rep as well there for about a year and a half before I was just ready to look for a new challenge. At the time, the Detroit Pistons had completely rebuilt their ticket sales and service program really from the ground up. I had no inside sales program there at all. And so, the inside sales program was built, and I was one of those first classes that kind of jumped on board to be a part of the story of, what now is Pistons basketball. So I did inside sales there, grew into an account executive role on the new business side before managing the inside sales team my last 3 years there. Absolutely loved it. Was a part of opening up the new now Little Caesars Arena downtown Detroit, which is an amazing building that they play in. And had a blast doing it until an opportunity came my way that I just couldn't pass up, and it was to pick up and head out west to LA, sunny California, and work for the Los Angeles Dodgers as director of new business development. Was one of probably the most scariest steps in my career that I had ever taken, and it was just because I had never taken an opportunity outside of Michigan, so it was outside of my comfort zone. And again, now that I look back at it, it's one of the best decisions I'd ever made to take that leap of faith, move out to Los Angeles, and be a part of building the infrastructure within our ticket sales and service team out in LA. So I was there for about 3 years. Again, I absolutely loved it. Had a blast out there. I wasn't looking to leave. I think there was still some things I wanted to build out there that I just hadn't built yet, but was in the plans to do so. But got a call from an industry mentor of mine, Joe Shavi, who was here with the Tigers as a vice president of ticket sales and was looking to build out his leadership team. It was just one of those calls, Joe, where it checked every box, and I had to take it, right? And so moved back home to Michigan, and have been here since June of 21, so coming up on a year now, and I've done some awesome things here in Detroit so far, but really looking forward to really what still the future has to hold for us.
That's awesome. Want to focus in on one of the things that you said kind of near the beginning of your career. So when you're with the junior hockey team, you started in inside sales, then group sales, right? And then you moved to the Pistons in their inside sales team again. Is that accurate?
That's true. Yeah. I think a lot of folks can look at that as a step back. I think for me, I looked at the opportunity as opposed to the title that was going to be next to my business card or what the LinkedIn post is going to look like when I updated my job title. I looked more on like the opportunity of where can I make the biggest impact within an organization to help use that to tell my story moving forward. I think that was one of the biggest ones for me. I think also I wanted to go ahead and work for someone that was going to challenge me, help me see a new side of myself to be able to again continue to grow within my sports sales career. And as I started having the conversation with the Pistons, it was really all of that. So again, at the time I mentioned, we were dead last in every revenue category you could possibly imagine when it came to how we were ranked amongst all of our peers around the league. To a salesperson, though, that's pure gold, right? To have all the inventory that you can sell and to really put your fingerprints on an organization. For me, that was a challenge I was up for at the time. And the leadership team in place there, I mean, I really felt like I was going to be able to learn underneath them. I was going to be challenged every day and pushed out of my comfort zone. And I can still say that to this day, that's the true part of what got me to where I am right now.
It sounds like you had a really cool, really unique perspective very early on in your career. How is that? How did you develop that, and how did you build that perspective?
Yeah, I knew that, I think it was very early on. I could just tell that this industry was a lot smaller than what it could be portrayed as, right? Like, there's just not a lot of these positions that are all around the country. So I knew that once I got in, that it was going to be really hard to stay in and continue to grow. And so I was going to have to find unique ways to be able to take my brand as Allen Jabero and set it apart from everybody else that were taking seats next to me. And so I was going to have to think in different ways. And, I'd already been in the industry for about a year and a half and really knew to some extent what sales was, but I also now had to find different ways now to be able to build my brand, build my story, to help set myself apart so I can continue to grow and take on more responsibility as my time progressed, throughout my career.
So as you did that, then, early in your career, whether it was with the hockey team or with the Pistons, what are some things that you did to help set yourself apart and to build your brand?
I knew I had to be consistent. I knew that what happened yesterday, what I sold last week, what I had done on the hustle board a month ago, just was going to be in the past and just wasn't enough. I knew I had to prove, and a lot of it came with, I just didn't wake up and know this stuff, Joe. I'm not going to, kid you there. I think I had to have tons of conversations with folks, whether it was through the interview process, with my leaders, through one-on-ones. Once I got there, I really like, what are we missing on the account executive level? And what is it going to take for me to get there? And consistency was that biggest thing. Someone that I can count on to come in and produce, not just every once in a while, but every single day, right? Who's that person that, when you talk about go-to players, someone when the ball is in their hands, they're going to deliver. So, and they obviously were looking for someone that, they could count on day in and day out. And I wanted to be that person. And so who can come in and reset every single day, no matter what you did the day before, whether it was good or bad, being able to shut that off when you leave work, reset the few hours that you have, after the office, get a good night's rest, and come the next day with a fresh attitude to be able to come in and produce again and be able to produce and do it all over again. And I think, doing that, and it's way easier said than done, but you got to be able to come in with that new attitude. You got to have some trust within your leadership team and know that they're putting the tools in front of you for a reason, and they're there to build you to make you better, right? And so you can come in with that great attitude. You can be consistent every day. You can be open-minded, knowing that you just don't know it all, but you want to learn as much as possible. That's really going to help you come in and take every day is can I just win today? I don't know what next week's going to look like. I don't know what the next month's going to look like. I have a yearly goal and that number might be large, but let's break that into bite-sized pieces and let's just worry about the 8 hours you're in the office today, the 12 hours you're in if it's a game day. Can I just win today? And if you can string a few of those along, you're bound to have success at some point.
I love that. You are dropping so many gems. I hope folks who are listening to this are writing things down.
Thanks, Joe.
So you've had the opportunity to help a lot of people get their start in their careers, and I think you're going to make a lot of impact as you continue to work there with the Tigers. What are some recommendations that you typically try and give people who are getting their start early in their own careers?
I would say be intentional with what you're doing. This can be just work that you go to every day. But I think it means more when you make it a career. And I think when you make it a career, you have to be intentional with what you do in order to do this and sustain it for a longer period of time and be able to continue to grow and fulfill yourself, right? I'd say really early on in, when I'm onboarding, or really in my first few one-on-ones that I'll have with a team member, one of the first things I want to know is like, what is your why? Like, why do you wake up every day? Why are you motivated? What are you motivated to do? And I think the more you learn that with the individual person, you're going to coach that person that certain way. And not everybody, it's not a blanket approach that you can, have just this overall leadership style that fits for everybody. Like that's just it's not the best way to go about it, right? I think you have to understand your folks. You have to understand what makes them tick and why they're coming in and why they're doing what they're doing. They took this job for a certain reason. They have their own individual goals that may be different than yours or the teammate that's next to them. So the more you can understand that, the more now you can start to drive them and coach them in that way that's going to help get the most out of them so that they feel fulfillment and they feel like they're driving towards their individual targets as well.
Yeah. Great. So you referenced earlier, you're coming up on a decade in the industry. At this point in your career, what does success look like? What does success mean to you? And has that changed over your time in sport?
That's a good question, Joe. I think success is, it's a tough thing to measure as something you feel like you've done, because it's never the time, I think, and point of your life where you feel like you've done it all. Well, then there's nothing else to do. And I think success is just when you're at the bottom of the mountain and you're looking towards the top, the peak is success to you. But what tends to happen is when you get towards the top of that mountain, well, once you start to see that your surroundings, that there's bigger mountains ahead of you. And so then success is measured differently at that time of what determines success. I think at this point in my career, the way I measure just small spurts of success is just based upon, am I making an impact? Am I putting my fingerprints and being able to pave the way for folks that are coming in after me to be able to see success and to continue to set the stage for folks to follow? And I think, as long as I can say throughout my career that I've made impacts that are still being fed off of today with organizations and stops that I've been at, I think that's success, right? That's true success. But then once you feel like you've met that goal, well, then now you find a new one that you've got to go and chase. And so I don't think that the mountaintop ever is reached, because there's always bigger and better things for you to go out and accomplish and bigger challenges to put your sights towards. And so I think the one day where I feel like I'm fully satisfied with everything I've done, well, then I'm obviously, should retire at that point. I think there's always something that you've got to be able to look forward to. And there's new challenges that you've got to set the expectation and raise the bar towards. But as long as you feel like you're making an impact on your career and your career is making an impact on an organization that's going to be there for years to come, I think it's safe to say that you can feel fulfilled at the given time.
I really like how you paint that picture, Allen, of the continuous mountaintops, but still making sure you're taking time to appreciate the successes and spurts, because it can be so easy to either one get settled in at that mountaintop and that mountaintop becomes a plateau, right?
Yep.
Or to get so focused on that next mountaintop and that next peak and that next peak that's coming that you don't realize how far you've come, or you don't realize what you've accomplished and take time to celebrate and appreciate that. And it can become a pendulum that you're at one end or the other. Making sure that you have a good balance between the two is so important to being able to have a long, successful career. You can either burn out or you can backpedal and fall back down that mountain really, really quickly.
Yeah, it's this job is not easy. You work a lot of hours when you work in sports sales. The days can just continue to just pile up on each other. And you said a word of burnout. That's a real thing. I think it's a real thing if you're continuing to look forward and you don't every once in a while just stop and just take a look at what you've done. Because I think that's what propels you to keep wanting more. Right? When you hit the big milestones and you hit accomplishments, like that feeling, the day or the moment that you hit it is why you want to do it again and again and again. Like, working in sports, or really working in sales, you tend to lose way more than you win. And so if you get caught up in just the losses, well, then what makes you want to keep getting up every day? Those small wins every once in a while, and that feeling every time that you win is what makes you want to get up the next day and just do it again. And I think you've got to be able to, at some point, reflect every once in a while on what took you to get there, how you got there, and the feeling that you got when you actually accomplished what you set to accomplish. And I think that's what gives you the motivation to say, all right, I want to do it again. I want to do something bigger. I want to do something more challenging. And it continues to help you keep your head on straight, knowing what you've already accomplished all the way up until this point.
Yep. So talking about those continuous challenges and continuing to present yourself with the next thing, again, looking back at your career path, you've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different leagues, multiple sports, from hockey to basketball to Major League Baseball in different cities, now in the Midwest and then the West Coast. How would you identify some of the different strengths and challenges that each league and each sport present?
Yeah, on the sales side, I would say, it's not necessarily more so the leagues that you work in. It's just the sales process has to evolve the longer you do this. The way we're selling today in 22 is way different than, you sold back in 2010. Like, that's just, there are things that you have to implement, to evolve, and to adapt to the marketplace that's going to help you see success. I think from a league level, different leagues, once you implement your offense that you run, you just have to adapt to the product that you're selling, right? And so I'll just, some examples of, working in the NBA versus working in Major League Baseball. Working in Major League Baseball, you have a bigger, that's more times than not, they're bigger stadiums. You have a lot more inventory. Now you're also selling a lot more games. You're selling 81 games on the Major League side. And, the challenges there is you're getting people to commit now to more games up front when you're selling a season ticket membership, right? You're having to fill larger stadiums for 81 times, right? And so it's not as easy when you're trying to find and implement different strategies to help you stay successful over the course of 6-7 months when you're talking about stadiums getting larger, and having to sell 81 games when, the innovation of having smaller plans and more attractive plans is what's in the marketplace today. The same thing with Major League Baseball. It's predominantly an older generation league, right? And so trying to find the younger fan base and attracting the younger fan base to be able to come on out and enjoy baseball is a challenge and something that we're looking to continue to work through. I think when it comes to the NBA, now you look at the opposite, where the NBA, you've got smaller stadiums. And so where the nice thing about the NBA, the pros about it, is you've got a predictable selling cycle. It's all indoors. And so you're going to play every game at the date and the time that you're going to play. But now you have smaller buildings, which means higher per ticket prices. And so now you're starting to fill stadiums while you're trying to use higher per ticket prices. And then now the more you sell, the better your team is. Now your group sales limits are only capped at a certain amount because you're selling your season tickets, to a certain amount as well. Where baseball, it's a group's paradise. You're really almost never going to run out of inventory. And so I think you have to, based on the league that you're in, you just have to adapt to the product that you're selling. But from a sales perspective, the offense that you run really doesn't change. You just have to innovate and implement different ways to continue to give your team members the best, the best opportunity to sell and have success.
I like that, Allen. You started off that answer talking about, how our sales process and how we sell has evolved so much now compared to in 2010. Would you say that your process and the way that we sell has changed, or is it more about the tools and the way that we communicate?
I would say when it comes down to just the nuts and bolts of the basis of the process, I don't think that that has changed. I think at the end of the day, you're still talking to someone, at a customer at some point over the phone, and you're still driving them to get face to face. Like, I think at the end of the day, that's still the end goal, no matter, we did that 10 years ago, but we still wanted to get face to face folks. I think we're still doing that today. Is trying to get folks down to the stadium or the ballpark and hosting them on an appointment to get them to understand what, options you have to deliver. I think you hit it, Joe, where, at the end of the day, it's just different programs, different tools, different platforms that have made it easier for you to communicate with your marketplace and to penetrate your marketplace with the offerings that you have to get you to have, and tap in and have more success outside of just the phone call that you may have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the way that people communicate requires us to make sure that we are evolving as essentially communicators. At the end of the day, that's what sales is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, one thing that I learned a long time ago in my career is that, being in the same league or industry, it doesn't guarantee similar cultures. And culture is something that's so important if you're trying to build something like you and Joe obviously are there in Detroit, coming into an organization new. How do you go about creating a strong culture, and what type of culture do you value, both as an employee and as a leader?
Great question, Joe. And I love when, that question comes up of like, what dictates a good culture? And I think, culture is something that happens organically. You're not coming in, flipping a switch, and all of a sudden your culture is great the next day. I think the basis of culture is really about people. And it's really about good, genuine people. So when you're looking to build a culture that's sustainable, that is an environment that people look forward to coming to work, you want to surround it with good, genuine people that are there and like-minded when it comes to why they're coming to work and working for the organization that you're working for, right? And so, when we're looking to build a team, and we're looking to continue to build on to the team that we already have, we just want to look for good people that have great character traits, people that are positive, people that are team players, people that are open to coaching, people that love to compete in a healthy way and compete with each other to push each other, people that want each other to do well, people that want to cheer each other on, help, celebrate successes and continue to motivate each other. And I think, the more like-minded people in that nature you put in one room, culture tends to build itself over time, right? And so, really when I talk about our culture on the sales floor right now, or what we built in LA, or what we had with the Pistons, it's never what we did. All we did was put people in a room. When you put people in a room, like the sales staff out there, like they built that culture. They get the credit. Like, you're building this environment. So when people come into that environment, they see it as a fun place to work. They see it as a healthy challenge. They see it as like they're getting better and they're growing, and they know that they're worth it there and they matter and they're making an impact. And I think at that point, like, that's what builds a healthy culture. That's what builds a sustainable one, to where people really value and love coming to work every day. And so all we have the opportunity to do is to be able to put those people in the room. And obviously that's what the extensive interview process is for, is to make sure that those people are the right folks that are going to complement what we already have and continue to build on it. And from there, culture kind of builds itself organically.
I think, that's a huge part of it, bringing in the right people, because so many people get caught up in, well, leadership builds culture. Leadership dictates what they want their culture to be, and it comes from the top down. But just as much of that, it comes from every single person in an organization, impacts and dictates what the culture will be like. Pushing back at you a little bit, though, I think one of the things you talked about is, people can come in and they feel like they're going to be developed. They feel like they're happy to be there. There's a big element of that we as leaders carry, right? Like, we impact on whether somebody will come in and feel like they're growing and they're being developed, they're being invested in, they feel like they're being listened to and being heard, right? So we can bring the greatest people in the world, but we need to make sure that we're continuing to pour into them, listen to them, engage with them in the right way to build the culture that we want, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the story that you tell before folks even start day one, right? That starts in the interview process of really what you value as a leader, what you're going to help with, like invest in them, help them accomplish over time. And you kind of set that expectation kind of going into day one. And then a lot of that conversation, again, happens in a one-on-one setting where you need to truly understand your folks. You need to truly understand why they're there and where they're trying to go. And the more you understand about them and you learn what they're valuing and why they show up every day, then you can alter your coaching and your style so that it adapts and gets the most out of them. And I think that's when people truly value that they're there working for the right folks, is when they know that you have the best interest in them.
This goes back to what you said before about the importance of somebody's why and understanding everybody's why and understanding your own why.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So staying on that subject of leadership, you talked about, getting that call from Joe previously. Obviously, that's an important relationship to you. What do you value in leadership or in support from your own senior management? And how do you try to match that with the folks that you lead?
Yeah, I would say it kind of goes back to the last answer a little bit, Joe, because I think the way, like what I ask of leadership is the same that I'm going to pour into my team, right? And it comes with understanding me, why I'm here, what I'm looking to accomplish, and what my true values are. And I think the more that, my leaders can understand that and can coach to that when we're sitting in one-on-one sessions and can kind of know if I'm heading in the right direction or not, all I ask for is transparency, right? We've got to be able to communicate, we've got to understand each other and be able to have some healthy conversation, to help push each other. And I think that's the same thing that, I give to my team is, my staff is like, I want to understand you before I'm going to help set expectations of what you'll need to do to accomplish the goals that you're looking to accomplish. And, I think trust is a big factor in that. And trust doesn't happen in the matter of 24 hours. Like that continues to grow over time. But I think there's easy, triggers or ways that you can start to understand just by the way that someone is speaking to you, and if you can trust that person, if you can help hold a conversation and just by instinct on if you feel like that person has the best interest in you and your career and helping you move forward.
One of the things that I think I struggle with a lot as I was early in my leadership career is my intention was to build that trust and to, hold my reps' best interest in heart. But I think some folks can come into an organization and be intimidated by a title, right? I think the longer I was in leadership, it helped to be able to have that reputation preceding me with people who had already worked with me, kind of providing that feedback to folks. Yeah. What else do you see that can help you as a leader accelerate that process of building trust within your own staff to ensure that you have the relationship that you need to make them more successful?
Look, I think it comes with you've got to be able to put yourself in a situation to where you're running with your team and not in front of your team. And I think that happens in a few different ways. Like I'm never going to have my staff do something that I'm not doing right next to them. And I think that takes your title away from it. Now you're just a teammate. You're just a teammate that's been doing it a little bit longer. And I think the more you help them understand that, you've got to find time in your day to where you spend time with your team out next to them at their desks, listening to their phone calls, listening to their conversations, listening to feedback. I think the more you do those things and the less that you're just like, look, I get it. Like we're all busy. We have meetings on our calendars. You got to juggle 100 things. But once you take on a leadership role, you're no longer doing this for yourself. Like you give that part up. 3/4 of your job is to be able to give to your staff, right? And to help them feel valued. And a lot of that trust comes with the simple things that you do on the forefront to help them understand that, like, hey, you're in this with them. Like, you're willing to do whatever it takes to help them continue to see success and to see progress. And a lot of those things, like I mentioned, is it's running next to them and not running in front of them, thinking like, hey, I'm going to keep running and you better just follow. You set the tone, you set the expectations, but we're going to do this together. When we hit those goals, when we hit those accomplishments, you celebrate them together. You celebrate them in meaningful ways, and you recognize those individuals. Those individuals are the ones that hit those goals. All you did was set the blueprint. All you did was put together the strategy, but they went ahead and executed. And I think you got to recognize those folks for that. I think that's a big thing that, sometimes is lost, is being able to find ways to recognize your producers so that they want to continue to run with you. They want to continue to help elevate themselves. And that goes into trust, right? Like, I think doing simple things like that start to get you to the point where you couple that again with what your conversations sound like in one-on-one settings. Like, one-on-one settings, that's not for me. That's for my staff. They set the agenda. Whatever you want to talk about. You have 30 minutes on the calendar. We can use all 30 minutes. We can take 10 minutes of it. It's all up to you and what you want to cover, but it's your content. And I'm here to just be able to help give you direction. I think the more you start to have those conversations with folks, Joe, I think the more that trust starts to build, that like, all right, this guy is actually here investing in myself and not just here, and I'm just one of his team members that's got to continue to produce so that he can have the spotlight and continue to be able to take that recognition. I think those simple things that you do are what help you be able to have buy-in more from your staff.
Yeah. Allen, again, this conversation has only been about 30 minutes, but I think that you're dropping so many gems that I hope folks are taking notes, and I hope folks listen to this multiple times because
thanks, Sean.
You're giving people invaluable feedback. I've got one more question for you. This is the one that I tried and end all of my conversations with. It's kind of a more in-depth, insightful one. So take a few minutes if you need to. But say you got another promotion and it was to president of sport. You were put in charge of the entire sport industry. You have a magic wand where you can change anything you wanted to about our entire industry. What is the first thing you were going to change?
Joe, it's a good question. Honestly, I would say, and this maybe goes back to where my thought process was as a college student entering the industry. I would say what the overall perception is from a college student perspective of what sports sales is or can be for you. I don't know about you, Joe, but I've heard this so many times. I've interviewed countless folks, but you invite someone down to the ballpark as part of an interview for them to just see what a day in the life is like working in sports sales. And almost always I'm ending that interview with, this is not what I thought it was. My expectations they're way off from what it actually is. And this actually looks a lot more fun than what I had imagined. And I think it's just that perception of what just the word sales is. And a lot of folks, especially college students, getting ready to enter the work life, they shy away from it because of what it could be, maybe with the negative aspects of it. And I wish that, and I'm not sure what the easiest way to go about it is, Joe, but if that perception was just different on the get-go and more students understood what that option was for them, I think you would get a lot more folks that are taking a chance working in sales within sports to be able to start their career in it. I just so happened to fall in love with it because I just jumped in. That's advice I never give people. Like, know what you're going into. I just so happen to do it the wrong way, which is now why I tell people not to do it. But I wish that I had some sort of knowledge of what I was getting into and what that role could be like. And which is now why I when I'm talking to college students and college classes and programs, that's one of the first things I want to make sure I get out of the way is really what this job is and what it could be for you, the value you get out of it, the impact you can make on a business, and the fulfillment you can get out of it. It is just undervalued, I would say, until someone takes the leap of knowing what it's like.
No, I think that is a great point and great perspective. I know I was very similar. A lot of folks that are in our industry in a similar position had that approach. I had zero interest in sales until I had a sales internship as a college senior.
Yeah.
And actually did it. I think you look at the situation. The reality is most folks in college have very limited interaction with salespeople, and when they are, it's folks who are doing it the wrong way or a way where it's very, very product focused. And a lot of college campuses are very mixed on their approach to sales. Shout out to Baylor, shout out to Centenary, shout out to Robert Morris, the schools who value sports sales or sales in general and who want to do it the right way and who want to invest in the next generation of the sport industry. But there are also a lot of programs, and I'm not going to mention specific schools, where they just don't value sales. And the way, whether it's professors and the way that they approach it and the way they describe sales as the quote unquote foot in the door, right? Which is a term that I can't stand.
Yeah.
The approach is that it's not worth your time or investment if you're a serious academic or a serious student or a serious professional.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Joe. And I think, we can, as leaders in the industry, we can also continue to do our part to continue to try to educate these programs and these students and being involved in these college programs, so that students, by the time they are getting ready to graduate, they're familiar with you, they know your program, and now it's a little bit of less of a leap of faith, and they actually have some familiarity, right? And so, the more we can do as an industry as well to continue to give back, I think that's probably a part of it as well. But I think to answer your question, if I could wave a magic wand, I would just completely have that perception taken away to what this can actually be in terms of career.
Unfortunately, since we don't have a magic wand, that's still an uphill climb for us. But again, thank you. Appreciate your time so much, Allen. To anybody listening today, thank you for joining us this for the last half hour. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, continue to listen for future podcast episodes. If there's anybody within your network or that you know or that you're connected to who I should be talking with, who you feel is exceptional in our sport industry, please let me know and reach out on LinkedIn. Thank you again for your time.